Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast. Each week we talk to people active in business and the economy about the big issues driving growth in the north of England. We're sponsored by Virtue Motors, one of the UK's largest motor retailers. You can see its website at virtumotors.com. I'm Graham Robb, owner of Recognition PR. We help scores of businesses promote their products and services. Some are featured on this podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. In the studio today, we have Ben Quaintrell, who's the Managing Director at My Property Box. And down the line, talking of property, we have the Director of one of the most important property events in the UK, Phil Laycock of UKReiiF. Later, my colleague Joss Havakin will be talking to Claire Preston and Marcia Atkinson about the Power of Women organisation and how it affects and influences women in business. Now, gentlemen, welcome to the programme. We've got Phil and Ben joining me. I'm going to start, if you don't mind, Ben, with Phil, because UKReiiF is once again almost upon us. Now, for people who are not in property, UKReiiF may not be as familiar as it is to others. Tell us what REIF stands for, Phil.
It's the UK's Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum.
Now, you're holding this event in Leeds. It's over several days. Give us a brief overview of what people who are attending could expect to see.
It's now the biggest multi-sector, multi-geography real estate and infrastructure event in the UK. So people can expect to meet with over 1,500 property investors, developers and occupiers. We've got the vast majority of the UK's councils there, again, talking about their development opportunities. And we've got those that are involved very much in the building process. So we've got the supply chain, the contractors, the consultants, the architects, and pretty much everybody comes together over 3 days in Leeds from the 21st to the 23rd of May.
I dropped in for one of the days last year and it was buzzing, very warm, sunny day as well it was, if I remember rightly, and it was very crowded. It takes place, it did last year at the Royal Armouries. Is it the same venue?
It's the same venue. Yeah, we like the Royal Armouries. It's a quirky site sandwiched between the river and the canal. We've got room for pavilions. There's the Big Armouries Museum, which we managed to take over for 3 days, and we've got lots of other spaces around the site now, which is great. So it's not like a big empty shed with a Lexpo stuck in the middle with a stage. It's got a bit of personality as the Armouries site. And
the actual event is lots and lots of breakout events, lots of pavilions with things happening all simultaneously. You're spoiled for choice if you want to find out what is happening in the UK when it comes to property investment. We'll go into it in detail in a moment, but just give us a bit of history. How did it all start?
It started during lockdown with the idea really that the UK needed a single multi-sector real estate event. You have to go abroad to have something similar, which seemed crazy at a time when we were all questioning our carbon footprint, and it also coincided quite nicely with levelling up. So Leeds was the perfect venue for a conference like this in terms of levelling up, and central government really embraced the idea quite early on, the private sector, local government as well. And the fact that it's grown 3,700 year one, 7,500 this year, will be over 12,000 people attending this year. It's just going to be a very busy 3 days in Leeds.
Sure. It does look it. And there are people of influence attending. There was, as you say, I remember on business going to an event of a similar structure in the south of France in March, with all very sunny weather and lots of people sipping champagne. And there was a lot of gossip and lots of world cities. But it didn't have as much relevance as I felt UKReiiF did last year to me as a business and an individual in the north of England. UKReiiF was giving us much more relevant content.
And this is, you mentioned 33 pavilions we have. We have about another 20 or 30 rooms where the meetings are taking place. Central government meeting, local government meeting, the private sector. And yeah, the sun shines in Leeds as well. It has done for the last 2 years, and we'll keep our fingers crossed this year too. But it's actually it's playing its part in making the world go round as far as the property sector is concerned.
Just a little roll call from the emails I've been receiving from your marketing people. These are the towns, cities, venues from the north of England, and they're all from all over the country, I should stress, but this is the Northern Business Podcast. Hull, Cheshire, Warrington, Newcastle, Tees Valley, South Yorkshire, Westmoreland and Furness, Manchester. They're all there, and probably more as well. Now, tell us about what are the kind of themes you're seeing emerging as the reasons that people would want to go and discuss matters related to property?
So the overriding reason to set UKReiiF up was originally bringing inward investment into the regions, and therefore creating the opportunity for the investors to talk to the local authorities about the investment opportunities there. But actually what's grown out of this are the number of conversations that are addressing some of the challenges and some of the things that we focus on, such as, so levelling up has been a really strong theme for the last 2 years, net zero and the need for sustainable growth as well. What we're seeing this year is we've got issues, challenging issues such as the Building Safety Act that is fairly prevalent, ESG, and AI is quite an interesting one this year. So we've got a lot of conversations around technology. Hardly anything at all on AI last year, but this year it's probably one of the dominating themes as to the impact it's going to have on the industry and understanding how we can actually make use of technology to become more efficient.
And there are other themes that I've noticed are around in the sector that certainly concerning investors. Biodiversity net gain. A new regulation was introduced recently, and I noticed that one of your sessions is a professional development session explaining that.
Yeah, that's a huge factor. Biodiversity net gain planning, of course, it's all tied in with this too. Natural England and the issue we've got with nutrients too. It's all about how we can speed the process up with regards to planning, but also doing it in the most appropriate way, because net zero is obviously upfront and central in terms of the priorities. But biodiversity net gain, the ability to improve a site after you've developed on it, is absolutely key to embracing the environment at the same time as building more houses, which we need in the UK.
So it's a national conference. It's based in the north of England, which always gets you a round of applause on this podcast. You've chosen to be in Leeds for another year running. Is there growth in this conference, the number of people attending and so on?
Yeah, the reason why we like Leeds, we're a Leeds-based business, but we are committed to future conferences being held in Leeds for the foreseeable future. And that's where we're at, really, in terms of our plans. What Leeds Council and the owners of the site of the Royal Armouries have shown us is that we can achieve 20-30% growth year on year for the next 3 to 5 years. We know exactly how the site can grow and how we can take it from 12,000 people this year to 15 to 18 to 20,000 fairly quickly, really, in terms of getting the space and being able to host everybody.
That is a large number of professional people on one site, but that is, you said 12,000, but that's a tangible growth from last year.
That is, yeah. So that's up from 7,500 last year. We were aspiring to 12,000 this year, but it's great to achieve that. We still have 3 weeks to go, and we are around about 11,500 now. And the last few weeks is traditionally fairly busy in that regard. So yeah, it'll be north of 12,000 this year. Okay. And I think we can see where we're heading for next year as well. Well,
development and property is all about sustainability. How do you get the conference to be sustainable? I drove my car to it because that was my way of getting there for the appointments I wanted. But if you're getting the train from Leeds to Leeds, it's not actually in the centre. How do you get there? Is there a shuttle service, or you just have to rely on taxis? How do you get there?
It's just over 10 minutes walk from Leeds station to the site, so it is quite handy. Leeds and the canal has got the riverboat, the canal boat there, the water taxis, which are great. Well, the weather's good. It's very easy for people to embrace active transport and walk to the site themselves.
Well, Phil, I didn't even know there was a canal boat in Leeds. That's certainly
taxi.
Brilliant. I've never used it. Well done. Look, stay on the line. Let me just bring Ben in. It's not quite the same kind of property that you work in that Ben works in. Ben, your business, My Property Box, you've been on the programme many times. Just to remind our viewers and listeners what My Property Box is and how it's growing.
So we offer mainly lettings and management services across the North East, from Northumberland all the way down to North Yorkshire. We're not in Leeds yet, but hopefully one day. And we offer sales, lettings, management service for property landlords, property investors. We work with a lot of SME investors ourselves, and it's fantastic what Phil's doing in UK. The connecting people, which is what it's all about, because what happens is you get a lot of investors that have cash that want to invest in property. You have a lot of developers that want to develop, and whether it's small developments or large developments, and then you have the local authorities, and it's about connecting people, and attending conferences like that is a perfect way to connect people and solve our housing crisis that we all have upon us now.
Now, investing in property, residential property and property to let, it's having its own legislative issues at the moment. There's a bill being debated in Parliament today, the Rent Reform Act and so on. Are these? Is this presenting hurdles that change the investment criteria and the investment outputs for people?
I think the Rent Reform Bill overall is a good thing that's happening. Is going to reform the industry, and a lot of professionals in property welcome that, because for so long there hasn't been a lot of regulation. It has gradually come in over the years, but certainly now it is ramping up a little bit. So yeah, most property professionals would welcome it, but it's obviously the devil's in the detail, isn't it? And it's just subject to what they're going to do. Obviously, the Section 21 is a big talking subject. No fault eviction. So they just need to get it right and involve everybody in the industry in that, which they are doing, to be fair.
So no fault eviction is the key lodestone for the tenant. But when it comes to other reforms that are being discussed, there is the prospect of leasehold reform, and this particularly is something for investors to consider. What's the background to that reform?
So absolutely, yeah. If you're an investor in property and you're looking at a strategy, whether it's converting an old pub into a number of flats, whether you've got a plot of land that you're looking to develop and put a block of apartments on, really, that would affect the leasehold. There's a lot of things you need to consider with that. At the end of the day, if you're a property investor, it's about return on, a lot of the time it's about return on your investment. Yes, you've got a social environmental responsibility, but a lot of it is that. So yeah, around the leasehold, it could cloud. There needs to be more clarity, and it's all going to come out over the next 6-12 months, isn't it? But yeah, it certainly would, stipulate to an investor whether they should do that strategy or not. But obviously with apartments, per square foot in terms of the grounds, you do get more property. And with a housing crisis like we have at the moment, that's what we need. And that's why we've seen in the North East professional HMOs become so popular, because of the lack of property available. So you find a lot of investors, developers converting old Victorian properties into HMOs, multiple occupation.
And these houses are being sold no longer to students, are they? They're going to professional people, young professionals who are living in an environment that is, yes, a house share, but more professional and higher quality.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, years ago, the general standard of HMOs were seen perhaps at the lower level, but now, the very high level, the very, high-end 5-star standard, a lot of the professional ones. And it is ideal if you're a young person moving to the North East, perhaps to Darlington to work at the Treasury. You've just left university, moving into a HMO, all bills included, property is attractive position, and you get to share a house with other young professional people.
Now, another thing that's happening across parts of the North, which is relatively new, it's happening in London, and maybe you're seeing it reflected with people coming to ReiiF, is build to rent, large corporate apartment blocks which are being built to rent. Now, it's not happening in the North East as much. I think there's one or two in Newcastle. There's one being discussed in Durham. But in Leeds and in Manchester, they are more commonplace, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. With all of these sort of schemes, buy to rent is another one that's quite popular now, and they start off obviously a lot in the cities like Leeds and Manchester, and they move up to the North East. Newcastle, there is some schemes like that now in Newcastle, so it is coming for us North East people, and you do see that. But yeah, traditionally it's in larger cities.
Now, when it comes to investment returns, and I suppose this goes to you as well, Phil, people are attending your conference and they're attending in greater numbers. People are investing in property, and you'd expect that the investment appetite has been diminished. But isn't it the case that it all fits into where interest rates are and they're likely to come down? The smart investment might be looking again at property? Phil first.
It's interesting what you're saying with regards to rental, because we're going to talk an awful lot about build to rent and shared ownership and shared occupation as well, because so getting mortgages for houses hasn't been a massive challenge, and house prices over the years. So I think we're seeing some quite nice balanced conversations now about the type of housing that councils need with regards to that. But yeah, it's definitely going to give us a boost if the mortgage rate starts to come down significantly again, because I think it has been a tough last few years, hasn't it, as it's gone through the roof, really, compared to recent levels.
And what's your assessment of where the rates are and what that is doing to investment appetites?
Yeah, I agree with Phil. Yeah, it has been a difficult few years, and what we tend to find generally is actually in the last sort of 3 to 6 months, first-time buyers have actually started now being a little bit more active in looking at property, where maybe 6 months to 12 months ago they were waiting, they're worried about the interest rates, but now it kind of feels like, is it the normal thing of where we're at now? It might drop a little bit. Inflation was announced that it dropped last week, so is there a an interest rate reduction coming? We hope so, but certainly first-time buyers, they're definitely a little bit more confident, because it is what it is. They want to crack on with things. Investors, it's all about the return on investment and the money out and all the rest of it. But yeah, like Phil says, it has put a slight damper on it over the last few years. So hopefully, I'm always the optimist. Hopefully good things to come.
And one last question to you, Ben. Your business is growing. I'm not talking about the market of how many houses you sell and how many houses you lease out and so on. I'm talking about the business. You're actually acquiring new businesses. You're building your business up by acquisition. Tell us about that and why you decided to do it that way rather than organically. Yeah,
so we're doing a lot of, it's called buy and build. So we're buying other lettings businesses and estate agencies at the moment in the northeast. And it's the point you made before. There's a lot of changes in the industry. The rent reform bill legislation's one of them. AI is another one. Technology changes. And it's just that time in our industry where there's a lot of consolidation, a lot of people, retiring, getting out of the industry, a lot of changes. And we're just in a position at the moment where we're consolidating on that, and we're looking to continue the growth. And that's why we've bought 10 businesses in the last 4 years, and we're going to continue doing that at the moment.
Well, look, Phil, thanks for joining us from Leeds, and have a great conference next month. I'm going to try and get there. I haven't yet bought my ticket, and I know I'll have to hurry. And Ben, thank you as well. Okay. Now, let's change the subject. Go over to my colleague Joss Havakin, who's been speaking with Claire Preston and Marcia Atkinson, both from the organisation Power of Women.
Thanks, Graham. This week, I have two people on from the Power of Women campaign. You might have seen it as POW. I've got Claire Preston, who's the head of operations at the campaign, and Marcia Atkinson, who's one of the lead corporate sponsors. Thank you both for coming on this week.
Thanks for having us on, Joe.
No problem. Now, I keep seeing POW absolutely everywhere in the news and on LinkedIn, but for those who've maybe missed the campaign, could one of you please, maybe Claire, tell us a little bit about the campaign and the ethos behind it? Where did it come from?
Well, that's a really interesting question. So it came from the seeds of an idea from a remarkable woman who many people will be familiar with, the late and very dear Pro-Vice-Chancellor Jane Turner over at Teesside University. She was a massive champion of equality and a champion of social mobility. And as a result of the report that was published in 2016, which stated that Teesside was the worst place in the UK for teenage girls to grow up, she decided that she was going to do something about it, which was very Jane. The idea evolved in various different ways, and it culminated in the establishment of the Power of Women as a CIC a few years ago, just before Jane sadly died. So what we do now is we work in schools across the North East to raise aspiration and ambition and break down gender stereotypes and teach children that they can be anything that they want to be, regardless of gender or postcode.
Right, you do that by working with business people to almost act as a beacon for people to, kind of have aspirations and see the people who they maybe could be. So what's new with the campaign? You've mentioned Teesside, but it's not just Teesside anymore, is it?
No, it isn't. And you're absolutely right. Role models are a massive part of what we do. But also really key to that is that we can't do what we do without the collaboration and input and support of the local business community, which is obviously really, really critical in so many ways for the exposure and the opportunities for children and teaching them what's available locally and further afield. But we need the support of really proactive business leaders who actually want to get on board, developing our young people, developing their talent for the future. So we have fantastic sponsors who help us to do that. And one of them is on the call with us today, Marcia.
So, Marcia, why did you decide to get involved, and what is it that your company and you are doing?
Well, I'm Marcia. I'm the financial director of BTS Facades and Fabrications. We make bespoke metal facades for the outside of buildings, for anyone that doesn't know. I went to my first POW event in 2021 for International Women's Day, and they just did an amazing presentation on the wonderful work that POW was doing in the Teesside area. And after seeing everything on LinkedIn and what they were doing, I wanted to bring it to County Durham. We live in a deprived area also, and it's I know Teesside, the steelworks shut down and everything, and there was a lot of redundancies and a lot of underprivileged families that couldn't afford to live. Well, we have that with the mining villages in this area, and what POW we're doing with the children just really bowled me over. I wanted it to be part of County Durham as well.
Okay, so it's now moving into Durham, and I think that includes Darlington. How can people in the area get involved? Is there an opportunity for them to maybe go out a little bit?
Yeah, so Marcia has been really instrumental in gathering together a cohort of business leaders over in UKReiiF, which has enabled us to extend our reach to a new group of schools over that way. But we need the support of businesses in so many different ways, and there are loads of ways that people can get involved, either through using their CSR volunteering days, through corporate sponsorship, net sponsoring events, joining our fundraising campaign and initiatives, and sponsoring schools. So schools have very tight budgets. There's so much benefit to schools being involved. The whole school community benefits when we work with those schools and with those young people, but we really do need additional financial support and collaboration.
Okay, so say I'm a business over in County Durham. Obviously, sounds like Marcia's got UKReiiF and that area absolutely on lockdown. But if I wanted to come along and maybe speak to some of the other people who are involved and see a little bit of it, is there a place that we can do that? Is there regular meetings?
Absolutely. We have monthly networking meetings, but because of the new groups that we're developing and that community we're building over in UKReiiF with Marcia's help and another lady, Nikki Jolly, we're planning a number of events specific to that region. So do you want to talk about that, Marcia, about the event that we've got coming up?
Yeah, sure. So we have an event on the 3rd of June. It's at Hallgarth. So if you go onto Eventbrite or you go onto LinkedIn, there's a link on there and you can get your ticket. It's an amazing, we've got inspirational speakers, and it's a great chance to network and get involved with POW and be able to find out more about the campaign and how they can, how they're able to help us.
Brilliant. So everyone can find that online, but there's one question I'd like to ask you both, really, and that's, when you were younger and you were beginning your careers, do you wish there was something like POW back then? Do you think it would have made a difference to where you are now, or, the people who you grew up with?
100%. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it, Joss, and I'm sure Marcia will feel the same. But I would have absolutely welcomed any support like this, just to give me more insight and understanding of the opportunities that were within my reach. I had no idea. Our careers guidance was so limited, but we do more than that. It's more than careers guidance. It really is building confidence, developing awareness, and really teaching young people that these things are within their reach and are opportunities for them, even though they might not believe that to be the case right now.
Well, I think it's a case of I think I may have even picked this up off a POW post, but if you can see it, you can be it. And I think you two are both, brilliant examples of people who have really made a fantastic career here in the Northeast. Well, this podcast covers the whole of Northern England, and I'm sure there's going to be people who may be considering how they can run something or get involved in a campaign like POW. So I'm sure that maybe there'll be a few people who'll be getting in touch with one or both of you and seeing how they can maybe start something similar in their area. Listen.
Thanks, Joss. Talking to Marcia and Claire there. Now, if you'd like to join us as a guest on the Northern Business Podcast, feel free to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Use LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to do it. And thanks also to our podcast producer, Harry Sinclair, my technical operator, Robin Campbell. Join us next time for the Northern Business Podcast. Don't miss an episode by liking or rating or subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.